everyone. For centuries, a whisper has echoed through time, a promise shimmering like a mirage on the horizon, the fountain of youth. We've been told it's a romantic myth, a fantastical quest of a bygone era, a mere footnote in the annals of discovery. But what if that whisper was a lie, a colossal, manipulative deception, engineered not by nature, but by man? What if the fountain of youth wasn't a myth, but a meticulously crafted trap that consumed one of history's most ambitious explorers, leaving behind a trail of blood, madness, and an enduring mystery that has fooled the world for over 500 years? Today, we unravel that lie. We dig into the true, dark tale of Juan Ponce de León, a man whose ambition was as boundless as the uncharted oceans, a man who chased immortality only to find a far more permanent end. This is not the story you think you know. This is the raw, unvarnished truth of a quest for eternal life that became a journey into eternal damnation. If you are ready to peel back the layers of history and confront the sinister secrets lurking beneath the surface, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to our channel, because what you're about to hear will fundamentally change how you view the age of exploration. The year is 1493. The New World is a burgeoning canvas for European dreams and nightmares. Christopher Columbus, on his second voyage, Ponce was no ordinary adventurer. Born into minor nobility, a true son of Castile, he possessed an unyielding spirit, a martial prowess honed in the brutal Reconquista, and an insatiable hunger for glory and gold. He had witnessed firsthand the riches of Hispaniola, the tragic demise of its indigenous populations, and the ruthless scramble for dominion that followed. He learned quickly that in this new world, fortune favored the bold and the merciless. He carved his path through the Caribbean with a steel blade and an iron will. His exploits in Hispaniola and later in Borinquen, which he renamed Puerto Rico, were legendary. He crushed native resistance, established the first Spanish settlement, and accumulated vast wealth from gold mining and enslaved labor. He was the epitome of the conquistador, ambitious, brutal, and undeniably effective. But even with a governorship, vast encomiendas, and a personal fortune, Ponce de León was restless. The whispers of gold, of new lands, of uncharted territories were siren songs to his restless soul. And then a new kind of whisper began to circulate, one more potent than any promise of gold. The legend, as it was commonly recounted, spoke of a mystical island called Bimini, located somewhere to the north beyond the known islands. On this island, a miraculous spring flowed, its waters possessing the power to reverse aging, to restore vigor, to grant perpetual youth. This wasn't a mere folk tale. It was a potent blend of indigenous lore, medieval European myths, and the fevered imaginations of men desperate for conquest and immortality. But here's where the lie began to take root. Was this legend truly a native belief, genuinely passed down through generations, or was it a seed deliberately planted, a masterful deception spun by cunning mind? Think about it. A man of Ponce de León's stature, a seasoned conqueror, a pragmatic administrator, would he simply embark on such a perilous quest based on a quaint superstition? Number, the truth is far more complex and far more sinister. Some historians suggest that the tale of Bimini and its rejuvenating spring was amplified, perhaps even invented, by rivals. With Ponce de León, with his growing influence and wealth, was becoming a formidable power in the Caribbean. His ambition was a threat to others vying for royal favor and new conquests. What better way to remove a powerful competitor than to send him on a fool's errand? A wild goose chase into unknown dangers, far from the lucrative gold mines and strategic islands. Imagine the scene, a hushed conversation in the smoky taverns of Santo Domingo, a subtle hint dropped in a royal decree, a seemingly innocent native tale exaggerated and embellished by a conniving interpreter. The seeds of obsession, once planted in a man like Ponce, would take root and consume him. And consume him it did. The idea of eternal youth, of an escape from the ravages of time, struck a chord deep within Ponce de León. He was no longer a young man, the relentless sun, the arduous campaigns, the endless pursuit of power, had begun to etch lines on his face and weariness into his bones. The allure of immortality, of a chance to prolong his reign, his strength, his legacy, it was a promise that transcended mere gold. It was the ultimate dominion over life itself. This was the true nature of the lie, not just a physical place, but a psychological weapon, a potent illusion that tapped into the deepest fears and desires of humanity. In 1513, Ponce de León secured a royal commission not just to discover new lands, but specifically to find. The language of the royal decree was carefully crafted, hinting at the potential for discovery, but also subtly steering him towards this specific, almost unbelievable goal. He outfitted 3 ships, the Santiago, the San Cristobal, and the Santa Maria de la Consolación. Fee and his crew, a motley collection of hardened veterans, eager young men, and superstitious sailors, they set sail from Puerto Rico, not just seeking new lands, but chasing a ghost. A dream, a promise whispered by the wind. Their voyage was fraught with peril. The Caribbean, though familiar to Ponce, still held countless dangers, sudden squalls that threatened to splinter ships, treacherous reefs that lay hidden beneath sapphire waters, and the ever-present threat of unknown currents dragging them off. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The sun beat down relentlessly, scorching the decks, fraying nerves. The fresh water dwindled. The food rations became monotonous. The initial excitement of discovery slowly gave way to the gnawing fear of the unknown. As they sailed further north, they encountered a vast, sprawling coastline unlike anything they had seen before. Lush, vibrant, teeming with exotic flora and fauna, it stretched endlessly before them. Ponce, awestruck by its beauty, and perhaps arriving during the Easter season, Pascua, Florida, christened this new land La Florida. He claimed it for Spain, completely unaware that he had stumbled upon a landmass far larger and more challenging than any island. Florida was not Bimini, but the lure of the legend, the conviction of the lie, was too strong. He was certain that the fabled spring must be hidden somewhere within this verdant expanse. He ordered his men to disembark, to scout the coast, to search every inlet, every stream, every forest for any sign of the miraculous waters. The expedition became an increasingly desperate, almost frantic hunt. They navigated through dense mangrove swamps, choked with mosquitoes and venomous creatures. They explored winding rivers that snaked deep into the interior, their banks teeming with unseen dangers. The land itself seemed to resist their presence, its primordial power a stark contrast to their fragile European ambitions. The indigenous tribes of Florida, particularly the fierce Calusa, were no strangers. They were formidable warriors, intimately familiar with their homeland and utterly unyielding to foreign invaders. Their arrows, tipped with bone and flint, flew with deadly accuracy from the shadows of the cypress trees. Skirmishes became frequent, brutal, and costly. Ponce de León, a veteran of countless battles, found himself embroiled in a new kind of warfare, a guerrilla conflict against an elusive enemy who knew every hiding place, every secret passage. His men, exhausted and demoralized, began to question the sanity of their quest. They had faced hostile natives before, but this was different. This wasn't about gold or conquest. The tension on board the ships and within the landing parties escalated. Whispers of dissent began to ripple through the ranks. Some men believed they were cursed, pursuing a delusion that would only lead to their doom. Others, more pragmatic, argued for abandoning the fruitless search and returning to the known profitable lands of the Caribbean. But Ponce de León, by this point, was beyond reason. The lie had fully consumed him. His quest for eternal youth had morphed into a personal vendetta against time itself, against mortality. Every obstacle, every skirmish, every setback only fueled his resolve, hardening his conviction that the legendary spring was just beyond the next bend, behind the next cluster of trees. His eyes, once sharp and calculating, now held a haunted, almost manic glint. The men, once disciplined soldiers, became increasingly ragged, their uniforms torn, their faces gaunt with fatigue and fear. The promised riches, the fabled rejuvenation, remained elusive. Instead, they found only disease, despair, and death. Many succumbed to unknown fevers, venomous bites, or the silent arrows of the Calusa. The tropical heat was oppressive, the humidity suffocating. Supplies dwindled to dangerous levels, and the fresh water they did find offered no miracle, only thirst quenched, but never truly satisfied. Ponce de León, once a meticulous leader, grew more erratic. He consulted with native captives, desperate for any shred of information about Bimini or its spring. He listened intently to their tales, often misinterpreted, often deliberately misleading, clinging to every word that promised hope. However faint, he sent scouting parties in every direction, ordering them to return only when they had found the legendary waters. But they always returned empty-handed, their reports filled with accounts of dense forests, treacherous swamps, and hostile encounters. The sheer scale. Imagine the desperation of those indigenous leaders, confronted by these strange, heavily armed invaders demanding to know about a magical spring. Perhaps they genuinely had tales of sacred waters, but the European interpretation, fueled by their own myths and desires, twisted these into something entirely different. Or perhaps more cunningly, they recognized the folly of the invaders' quest and deliberately fed them false information, sending them on a wild chase into the most dangerous, unproductive parts of their territory, effectively diverting them from their true homes and resources. It was a masterful passive resistance, a brilliant psychological counter-offensive. They recognized the conquistadors' Achilles' heel, their greed, their superstition, their insatiable desire for the impossible. Ponce de León, caught in this web of desperation and deception, continued his search for over 5 months. His ships charted much of Florida's coast, rounding its southern tip and exploring the west coast, encountering the deadly currents of the Florida Keys but no rejuvenating spring, no mystical Bimini, only more wilderness, more hostile natives, more frustrated men by September 1513. With supplies critically low, his ships battered, and his crew on the verge of mutiny, Ponce was forced to concede defeat. He had found a vast new land, but not the prize he truly sought. He turned his ships south, returning to Puerto Rico, a shadow of the conqueror who had set sail. He had claimed Florida, yes, but at what cost? He had poured his resources, his energy, and the lives of his men into chasing a phantom. The ignominy of failure, especially such a public and costly failure, must have been a bitter pill to swallow for a man of his pride. But the lie, once taken, the belief in the fountain of youth, though ridiculed by some, persisted in Ponce de León's mind. The allure of immortality, the promise of a second chance, was a powerful narcotic. He spent the next several years in Puerto Rico, managing his estates, but his thoughts constantly drifted back to Florida, to the possibility that he had simply missed the spring, that it lay hidden just beyond the reach of his. He heard stories, rumors, whispers from other explorers and native captives, tales that reinforced his conviction, reigniting the fire of his obsession. This persistent belief, this inability to let go, underscores the true power of the lie. It wasn't just a physical place. It was an idea, a hope, that refused to die. In 1521, 8 years after his first ill-fated voyage, this time he was not just on an expedition of discovery, but a full-fledged colonization attempt. He invested heavily, outfitting 2 ships with 200 men, 50 horses, and all the necessary equipment to establish a permanent settlement. This was to be his grand finale, his ultimate triumph, a testament to his unwavering belief. He would not just find the Fountain of Youth, he would conquer its surrounding lands and establish an eternal dominion. His ambition, far from diminishing, had only grown more desperate, more fanatical. He sailed back to the southwest coast of Florida, to the heart of the Calusa territory, the very people who had so fiercely resisted his previous incursions. It was a perilous gamble, an act of almost suicide. The second expedition was a catastrophe from the start. The Calusa, far from being intimidated, met them with renewed ferocity. They understood the invaders' intentions, not just a fleeting search for water, but a permanent occupation. Their arrows rained down, deadly and unyielding. The Spanish, burdened with supplies and horses, struggled in the unfamiliar terrain. The tropical diseases, the lack of fresh water, and the relentless attacks took a heavy toll. Ponce de León, leading from the front as always, found himself in a desperate struggle for survival, not for discovery. He was no longer the confident conqueror of old. He was a desperate man, trapped in a nightmare of his own making, still chasing an impossible dream. It was during one of these brutal a Calusa arrow, poisoned and swift, found its mark, piercing his thigh. The wound, though perhaps not immediately fatal, became infected in the humid, unsanitary conditions. The poison, if any, and the subsequent infection began to spread through his body, a cruel irony for a man seeking to defy mortality. The dream of eternal youth shattered, replaced by his men, seeing their leader struck down, demoralized by the constant attacks and the futility of their mission, knew their quest was over. They scrambled back to their ships, abandoning the dream, abandoning the cursed land. They carried their dying leader with them, sailing back to Cuba, a desperate retreat from the unforgiving wilderness. Ponce de León clung to life for a few more days, his body racked with fever, his mind perhaps replaying the vivid scenes of his life, the battles, the conquests, the endless pursuit of glory. But in the end, it was not glory he found, nor eternal youth, but the cold, unyielding embrace of death. He succumbed to his wound in Cuba, a broken man, his life's ultimate ambition unfulfilled, his legacy forever intertwined with a fantastical legend. He died not a conqueror of time, but its ultimate victim, a testament to the devastating power of a lie. The fountain of youth, the promise that had consumed his final decades, had delivered him only to the grave. The aftermath of Ponce de León's death did little to dispel the lie. In fact, it solidified it. His failed quest, rather than being seen as a cautionary tale of delusion, was romanticized. The story of the Fountain of Youth gained even greater traction, passed down through generations of European chroniclers and indigenous peoples alike. It became a powerful narrative, a symbol of man's eternal struggle against mortality, a tragic yet heroic pursuit of the impossible. But beneath that romantic veneer lay the bitter truth of a monumental deception, a lie that shaped perceptions of an entire continent. Think of the implications. For centuries, the narrative of the Fountain of Youth was used to justify further expeditions, further incursions into indigenous lands. It was a convenient excuse, a tantalizing bait, a potent legend that fueled the European desire for the exotic, the miraculous, the undiscovered. The Spanish crown, while perhaps initially sending Ponce on a diversion, later found the legend a useful tool for inspiring ambition and obscuring the brutal realities of colonization. The story of the Fountain of Youth is not just about a spring, it is about the very nature of belief, the insidious power of suggestion, and the lengths to which humans will go to escape their mortality. It speaks to the lie was so potent because it tapped into these universal fears and desires, offering a magical solution where none existed. It was a lie that promised everything but delivered only death, deception, and the desecration of an entire culture. The indigenous peoples, whose lands were invaded and whose lives were disrupted by this impossible quest, paid the highest price. Their traditions, their spiritual beliefs, their very existence were trampled underfoot by men driven by a desperate, fabricated dream. The legacy of the Fountain of Youth, therefore, is not one of romantic adventure, but of profound historical irony. It is a testament to the way myths can be weaponized, how whispers can become powerful tides of human folly. Ponce de León, often portrayed as a noble explorer, was in reality a man consumed by a lie, a victim of his own ambition and the calculated deceptions of others. His story serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes the greatest treasures are not gold or eternal life, but truth, wisdom, and the acceptance of our own finite existence. The real treasure he found was a vast, beautiful, but ultimately unconquerable land, Florida, a land that would later become a testament to resilience, a vibrant tapestry woven from the very conflicts he ignited. But the lie, the 500-year-old lie, still lingers embedded in our collective consciousness, a ghost story of ambition and deceit. We are left to ponder the true cost of chasing the impossible. Was Ponce de León merely a pawn in a larger game of political intrigue? Or was his obsession a deeply personal one, fueled by a fear of his own mortality and a desire for an everlasting legacy? The answer, perhaps, lies in the shadows of those ancient whispers, in the dark corners of human desire where truth and fabrication become indistinguishable. The Fountain of Youth remains a powerful symbol, not of rejuvenation, but of the enduring human capacity for self-deception and the tragic consequences that follow when a lie is embraced as truth. What do you think? Did Ponce de León truly believe in the Fountain of Youth, or was he blinded by ambition and the machinations of his rivals? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. That is all for today's video. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.